You're breaking up with me? Good afternoon. Have you ever had to break up with your real estate agent? Was it a graceful exit? I suspect it probably wasn't. I just wanted to go over an article. The title says, How to Gracefully Break Up with Your Real Estate Agent. We'll decide if that's true or not. Let's get right to it. It says, How to Gracefully Break Up with Your Real Estate Agent. And then a fellow asks a question and says, this is an advice column. A year and a half ago, I listed a parking space for sale with a real estate agent. When the listing was about to expire, I relisted it for 6 months. So now that's a year, or no, 6 months. So that's another year. So last week I got a request from the agent to list it for another year. So that's 2 years. I instead opted for 3 months and she had a fit. She demanded that I renew for a year. So that would be 3 years. When I resisted, she said that she didn't want to work with me anymore and that I should send the cancellation fee of $350 to her office. Can she dump me and charge for it? There's a $350 fee written into the contract if the listing is canceled or expired, but I didn't cancel it. I sent her my authorization to extend it for 3 months, and then even changed it to 6. Can she arbitrarily just do that? So this guy listed a parking spot for 2 years. Agent said she wanted another 6 months. He wanted 3 months, and then they got into a scuffle. And she said, I don't want to work with you anymore. And the other fellow says, can she just arbitrarily do that? I don't know. Now, I don't see anything about gracefully breaking up with your agent in this article, which is why I thought it was kind of interesting. It says there's 2 aspects to your question we'd like to address. This is their advice. The first is the issue of what was written in your listing agreement. You should always read your listing agreements. You mentioned that the listing agreement has you paying $350 fee if you cancel the listing agreement or upon the expiration of the listing agreement. So in this case, it's expired even though you sent an authorization. We haven't seen the actual language in the agreement, but based on the information you provided, you owe the listing agent the fee. I agree with that. That's the way I read it. On a separate note, we don't know why you'd want to continue to work with this agent. Now that's tough because you're relying on secondhand information. You and she don't appear to be on the same page with regard to the listing. I don't know how long parking spaces normally take to sell, but when you're going for more than 2 years, I mean, I like to sell things within 6 months, or else I get sick of it. So even if they aren't going to be BFFs, we feel that the sellers and the listing agents they choose should work well as a team and actually like working together. I agree with this 100%. When we see disagreements between owners and their listing agents, we believe it's a signal for the seller to move on and find someone else with whom they're more simpatico. I say that truthfully. I agree with that. However, if someone is like forcing the seller in a different direction, like say their parents are forcing them to go in a different direction, it's not actually the client, then I'm a little bit hesitant. With somebody else stirring the pot. Your situation sounds a bit hostile, and that's not optimal, even if you and the agent have the same goal to get your property sold as quickly and for much money as possible. I don't know that that's true. 2.5 years, I don't feel like that's quickly. We assume you agreed to pay 5 or 6% commission to the listing broker for the sale of the parking space. Your deal with her was that she would find you a buyer, and you would pay her a percentage of the sales price. You didn't pay the listing agent on an hourly basis, but rather a percentage of the sales price. Sometimes the listing agent succeeds in the property and sometimes not, which is true. The question therefore becomes whether a seller should pay a termination fee to the listing agent if the selling agent does not succeed in selling the property. I don't understand how that would be, that you would owe somebody that. Some agents have added different fees to their listing agreements to cover some of the listing expenses in case they can't sell the property. Yes, true, but I don't do that. The agent has lost you and a customer and lost your referrals. Given her reaction, you're better off finding a different agent willing to work with you. You can leave it at that and pay the fee, or talk to her managing broker to let that person know how the relationship soured and how she dealt with you in the end. Basically, go tell the boss. You might also use that time to protest the fee. Frequently, managing brokers can smooth things out and in some cases waive fees due to a soured relationship. So what do you think? I have my thoughts. Let's go over them. Number 1, I was once working in a real estate office where the secretary was pretty wild. One day she decided that she just wasn't going to come to work anymore. When the manager looked at her computer, her searches were all about whether or not you should give 2 weeks notice or just quit. How's that related to this story? I don't know. I had a thought. I'm just messing with you. So I have not seen the termination fee in listing agreements we use. It's bad enough when you can't sell a property for a seller. Why make it difficult to leave the arrangement by imposing a fee? It doesn't make any sense to me. And my thought is there are risks. So if I have money out on the marketing of the property and it doesn't sell, that's a risk that I took. It sucks sometimes, but that's the way it is. There's this idea that a significant amount of the agent cost is at the beginning of the listing, like pictures, staging advice, etc. I agree with that. You got to believe, though, that your listing agent is working to sell your property. I mean, so much as saying, look, other properties have sold at this price range in this area, and clearly we're missing on the price. Clearly we have to be lower. I mean, they should be telling you that. They should be telling you houses that sold near the house so that you know what the competition is. They should be active as they have your listing. It's weird when I see the managing broker play by an agent, and here's how it's normally used. It's like, hey, I want to cut your commissions. And then I say, hey, let me ask the broker. And the broker says no. Or, hey, the managing broker won't let me do this, but if I were in charge, I would help you. Agents often use the managing broker as a person to throw under the bus whenever it benefits them. It's like normal. This case is strange because the breakup, according to the story, came from the agent. The agent basically fired the seller. I fired a buyer once, but they were on drugs and they weren't going to be able to buy a house since they burned through all their money on drugs. It was sad. I typically try to get to know and understand my client before I even bother with trying to take the listing. I have no problems walking from a property if I don't see a fit. And that's true. I mean, when somebody calls me and say they've called 3 other agents and we're all supposed to meet at the same time, I'm probably not even going to show up. It's not worth my time. You're already telling me what kind of person you are. I don't want to deal with you. Now, if you're going to meet with 3 other agents along the way and you say, hey, I'm going to meet with these other agents, that's a different story, but just a cattle call for a listing is not something that I'm interested in pursuing. If you feel awkward about breaking up with your real estate agent, maybe that's a confirmation that you just picked the wrong one to begin with. You should be able to get along with your agent so that if things go smooth, you would be comfortable explaining what the situation. So if they go smooth, you should be comfortable talking about it. If they go poorly, you should be able to talk about it. If you're feeling awkward, you've got something wrong with that relationship to begin with. One of the things I was wondering is, why is this parking space taking so long to sell? What is the price ask and what should it be selling for? It seems like a pricing issue as it has been on the market for such a long time and the agent is pushing for even longer. I mean, 2.5 years for a parking slot? I don't understand. Like I said, for 6 months, I get uncomfortable. I typically tell sellers what I'm comfortable with for listing duration. So in a hot market, I might ask for less time than in a difficult market. It just depends on the situation. So now, houses are selling every 15 days. I'm not going to take a listing agreement for a year. I do prefer a longer time because I know that the seller is more interested in getting the property sold with me versus just having a carousel of agents listing the property. So, if somebody calls me and says, I'll let you take the listing for a month, and then if you don't get it, then I'm going to move it to somebody else. That's typically not a situation I'm going to be in. And when agents try to use that against me, like say we're both working with a seller or looking to get their business, and the other agent pulls well, let me list it for a month, and then if it doesn't work out, you can list it with the other guy. That's typically one of 2 things are going to happen. I'm not going to get the listing because they're going to get fooled by that. The seller is, or the seller is going to be turned off by that approach and figure it out, and then they won't work with the other person. So that's just the way I look at it. If someone were irritated with me as a listing agent, I would tell them that it's probably the best to go our separate ways. After all, what sense does it make to be stuck in an agreement? I've seen listing agents do this, and I don't see how it benefits the seller or the agent. Maybe the agent believes it's a burn bridge situation anyway, and they're just trying to make the seller angry. But I just don't see the benefit of keeping someone in a listing contract because you're angry. Now, if we have an accepted offer on a property and we were working towards a close, I think that would be a dumb time to try and fire an agent. I've seen that on Reddit a couple of times. Like, we got a house under contract. Should I fire the agent? It's like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. You're so close to being finished. Why make that error at the end? So if you look at this article, there's really nothing about how to break up with an agent gracefully. It's not like call them and explain the situation and then hang up. It's not send them a text. It's not like relationship advice. How should you break up with your agent? Well, I suspect you should just simply tell them, hey, things aren't going very well. What do you think? And maybe come to an agreement. Like I said, I don't have any interest in holding somebody in a listing agreement for if they're miserable. How would that benefit me? They're going to sit there and they're going to badmouth me to all their friends and all their families for years, maybe. And for what? Like, how do I get ahead in that situation? I've seen agents do it. Oh, you can't fire me. We've got an agreement and we have to both agree. There's some weird stuff going on with those people. That's my thought. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. Hope you liked the podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.